All right, before we get started, just a reminder to the attorneys, you have your CLE form in the left-hand side of the folder. If you have a folder, for those who just have them, make sure you keep those. Again, CLE is pending with Missouri Bar. That approval process shouldn't take but a week or so. Just make sure you keep that with you. We will make sure we provide whatever we need to provide on our end when the time comes for you to submit that. That's number one. Number two, there's an evaluation sheet. If you don't have one with you, there's one out in the hallway. Please fill one out. We want to make sure we hear from you and do these forms better in the future. With your obviously your commentary, your advice, your counsel, and obviously we appreciate you guys being here to support events like these and the ones that we'll be having in the future. I'm going to stop talking now and introduce our last panel. We have Dr. Lance McCarthy and we have Dr. Mimi Vo, and they're going to speak about obviously the medical and employment ethics that we have here with medical marijuana and legal cannabis, but also Dr. McCarthy is going to speak first as a part of this program, Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and somebody asked earlier about the kind of the racial equity component of it, and I think Dr. McCarthy is one of the best people, being a national economist, to handle this particular topic. So we're going to bring up Dr. McCarthy, and thank you guys for sticking around. And Dr. McCarthy, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Again, my name is Dr. Lance McCarthy. I am the chairman of the Board of Advisors for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. We are a national organization just celebrating our 3rd anniversary. We are now in 23 states and 2 countries. The objective is to have social and economic equity for minorities in this space. We all have heard about the war on drugs and how the industry has made billions off of those that are of black and brown persuasion, and it is our objective to make sure that we have equity in that space. There is an economist that I quote quite often, John Nesbitt, and his book since the 90s is called The Global Paradox. And in the global paradox, as the world economy becomes larger, the more powerful the smallest players. And those of us that are biblical scholars, we know that the Bible says the first should be last and the last shall be first. It is very imperative as we look at the change in this industry that presently is a $50 billion industry and 80% of that is in the black market. As we move to making this legal, how do we make sure that minorities are a part of such? In our platform, we do a wide variety of things. One, we look at advocacy. And advocacy is looking at state legislation to make sure there are social equity opportunities. We're very happy to announce that Massachusetts denied an application because their diversity piece was not varied. And so as we look at how we can create the infrastructure around the country to make sure that minorities are part of it, we do that through a wide variety of ways. One is that we just recently did the Cannabis boot camp at UMSL. We had over 100 participants on the African American and Hispanic persuasion understanding the changes and the laws. It was a 4-week opportunity that we did at UMSL to see how one could understand the application process, how one understands the dispensary and all the other licenses in the state of Missouri. We ended it with a cannabis pitch session. We were able to have over 8 local organizations pitch to us to see how their variants could be applicable in the cannabis industry. We also are under the HR perspective. We believe that having individuals employed in this space, particularly those of minority persuasion, is necessary. So we have an online process of one getting applications to be able to work in the industry. We actually work with a recruiter who specializes in finding minorities for the cannabis space arena around the country. So if one wants to be employed in this space, we assist from that perspective. We also do advocacy on the state and federal level. 2 weeks ago, we were in Washington, D.C., talking to congressmen and senators on how we could look at federal legislation. If you all don't know, Senator Cory Brooke has implemented a bill on the diversity of cannabis on a federal level, and hopefully we can assist him in moving that forward. 2 weeks ago, we were in Illinois looking at how we assist individuals from the Diversity Lobby Day on that perspective. It's very candid. We cannot let this industry that has made billions on the backs of black and brown people not be a part of it. And as we get into this industry, capital access is very important. So we now have partnered with over 20 venture capital and equity organizations that are interested in assisting minorities in this space. Why is that important? As an individual who sees this as a great opportunity, there's a lot of other things that have to be happening. One, do you have the experience? 2, do you have the access to capital? 3, do you have the political wherewithal to get through the process? And so it's very important. I know a lot of people want to rush into this as the green rush, but it has to be one that has the experience and the background and the right team. And so we advocate again for diversity from that perspective. We're also continuously doing research in reference to what are the medical implications. We'll have some great information from that. But how do we take this opioid crisis that has been talked about earlier and use the cannabis sector for reducing pain and also making this agenda powerful? I'd also like to announce one of our business partners that we'll be working with locally and nationally is Field State. And what we're doing is looking at individual dispensaries around the country to make sure that the mom and pops have access. Somewhat like a franchise perspective, because if you're coming this by yourself, you need a support system in the back office to move that forward. Quite honestly, it's competitive. Oh, there's my frat brother. You have the flyers? Great. We have some handouts to you as well that gives you more information on minorities and medical marijuana to move the agenda forward. So really, if we're going to make this industry diverse, and if we're going to make it equitable for all, we have to look at the social equity legislation. You have to legislate things in order to move an agenda forward. If you're not deliberate, it's not going to happen. We started an organization 5 years ago called Ferguson 1000 because we wanted to come up with an economic solution for the unrest. So this is economics. Period. And how do we make sure that we are part of such to move this agenda forward, and minorities for medical marijuana at the forefront as we move this agenda aside. It is imperative here in this great state of Missouri that the amount of licenses that will be issued have to be, again, geared toward minority participation. It's been too many times we've advocated and talked about issues and not been able to move that legislation from a business perspective. There's been success in the industry from the minority side. We deal with a young lady by Hope in Baltimore. She's the youngest dispensary owner in the country. She's 25 years old, graduate of Spelman University. She spoke for us in the Baltimore mechanism and will be speaking recently. We all know the great rapper Snoop Dogg. He has a $42 million equity fund looking to assist minorities in the space. He's been able to leverage his celebrity status to the economic side. We also have a lot of professional athletes that are retired. We have a guy by the name of Antonio Harvey in Portland, Oregon that we work with. Used to play for Los Angeles Lakers. He has a cultivation perspective and well as a dispensary. So leveraging their access to be able to move this agenda forward. I believe there hasn't been a time in history that is changing an industry so profound, and as we are changing this industry, again, we have to make sure that diversity is a part of that. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but diversity is profitable. The more individuals that you have of different persuasion that have an economic impact assist in moving the agenda forward. And it's no news that minorities are minorities, so it becomes a job creation mechanism because we're able to move that agenda forward. We will continue to advocate across this country, not only domestically, but globally. We're dealing with licenses around the world, in Africa, in the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, looking at making sure that we create this infrastructure to make sure that equity is a part of it. So I would just want to advocate that everyone here and around the state make sure that as we alleviate the past war on drugs, that as we move to this industry, that we move to cannabis and make it legal, that we move to help people from the pain side as well as the mechanism of growth, that equity is a major, major part of this. And we can only do that by legislation, and we can do that by access to capital and the right partnerships. So I'll be around the rest of the day to talk to you about how we can work with you on existing projects. I know that we have some individuals who attended the Cannabis Boot Camp and are looking for licenses and partners. We have a plethora of businesses locally that we know of African Americans who are in this space. So if you are attempting to get a license, or if you're looking for a diversity partner, we can help you from that perspective. Missouri has an opportunity to create something new around the country, and I hope that those who are here will use what we have and the information that we have for minorities from medical marijuana to make sure that equity is a part of that. Thank you.
How do we get the word out to minorities that are interested? Because we know that the process is already
Going, yes, yes.
started down that road, and I guess they said they're going to start issuing licenses July, August, is that what they said?
August, yes.
So here we are now.
2 months out.
What are you doing to get the word out?
Well, again, thank you, Council Mavis Thompson, that provided this forum. Things of this nature are very important to get information out. We will continue to do social media and marketing through our network to make sure individuals know. We have to share as many ways as we possibly can to get the information out. So again, forums like this, social media and marketing, getting information out is very important. We've been doing it, but we work with you to make that happen. Is it? Okay, great. Oh, yes, yes.
Dr. McCarthy, thank you very much. I was actually in attendance.
Yes.
The best way to get the information out, I don't mind taking the microphone. The best way that you can get the information out is go to the website, Department of Health and Human Services, mo.gov, and then look under the marijuana program. Get yourself educated about doing that. That's a great place.
Yes.
What I wanted to ask is, Missouri is burgeoning on the appointment of these licenses. What would you say that as a community-wide, for those interested in making sure that there's diversity and equity in this industry, what would you say is the best way for individuals to get involved with the legislation and collective voice to make positive movements and change for the direction of this industry?
Great question. As you mentioned, there is the czar for the state, making sure that one calls in the state and advocate on their behalf. Again, we'll have another lobby day before August on the state level, and just sharing information, getting information out to individuals to make sure that diversity is a part of that. If you are a minority, you're trying to get into the space, talk to us before this is over, because we have, again, organizations approaching us wanting to make sure that they have a diversity partner or applicant in that perspective.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to walk while I talk, because I like to move about. I'm an internal medicine physician here in St. Louis. My office is down on South Grand, across from the public library, for those of you who may know the area. I joined my father's practice 10 years ago, but I have been practicing for 15. So I became a part of this movement about a year ago. Met a few people at a cannabis conference, then got to know Andrew Mullins, who's executive director of the Missouri Cannabis Trade Association, and he is here today. Thank you. So a year ago, the Missouri Cannabis Trade Association was founded in order to help advocate for the industry, for this fledgling industry, and I was brought in as a physician to help with to become a chair of the Healthcare and Education Training Committee. And about a year ago was when I really started looking into cannabis as a medicine, and so I'm a little new at this, and a lot of you in the audience probably even know more than I do. But a couple of things that I want to touch base on today was what I found on my journey. One of the first things I found that was very interesting to me is that this plant has been used as a medicine for thousands of years. In China and Pharmacopoeia, which is the book of different medicines that are used, in 1500 BC, it was in China's Pharmacopoeia as well as India's Pharmacopoeia. And in 700 BC, it was in Persian religious texts on how to use it. The cannabis was brought to the United Kingdom to be used for the Queen's menstrual cramps in the 1800s. And it was on the US Pharmacopoeia as a medicine from 1850 to 1942. It was used for opium addiction, alcoholism, gout, chronic pain. And so it was a medicine back in the early 1900s. It really did become this semi-illegal plant through the Marijuana Tax Act. And it was multiple things. It had to do with money, it had to do with politics, and it had to do with racism. And when I learned about that, that really intrigued me and got me really interested into looking at, well, what is the research that's out there? I did not learn about this in medical school at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. I didn't. And 80% of medical schools today, or maybe higher, don't teach the endocannabinoid system or cannabis. I will have to say that the receptor was only identified at St. Louis University in 1988, and Dr. Mashulam really looked into this in the early 1990s. So I went to medical school in 1996. There's no way for us to have had enough research and information. And as I go around to talk to different doctors about cannabis as a medicine, most of the time I get the answer of, there's no research available. You know, we just don't have that research that's there. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not true. There are a lot of articles, lots of trials, a lot of case studies. We haven't been able to research it, and doctors want to research it because it's been a Schedule I drug on the Controlled Substance Act through the DEA. And so there are doctors out there that I've met in the last year who are doing this research but went through lots of hurdles, have gotten fired from universities for wanting to do this research. One is Dr. Sue Sisley. She's doing research on cannabis for PTSD, and she is actually got $2 million from Colorado because they had a surplus in order to fund her research facility. She did get fired from the University of Arizona for wanting to do this research. When she got the NIH to allow her to do this research, she was able to get cannabis from the University of Mississippi. At that point, she had partnered up with Johns Hopkins University, and Johns Hopkins said, we are going to do this research with you. She got the cannabis through a FedEx, car came in, they got their medicine. When she opened up, it was seeds, leaf, ground up cannabis. That was not what she saw in dispensaries in Arizona. So she contacted the media, they published this, and Johns Hopkins withdrew from that research study. They said, you should be so lucky that the government's letting you research this. Why would you do that? And her answer was, people need to know. The reason the research we have that's available is not good quality is because what we're given by the U.S. government is not good quality. And so she's one of those doctors that is really pushing to do research despite all of these hurdles. I will tell you, there are not very many doctors out there who can. Some of us have jobs we have to keep, we have children we have to take care of, and we don't have that ability to do what she's done. So when I looked at the research that's available, two of them that I think are very important to know. The Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, which is a peer-reviewed journal, in 2015 looked at 28 different databases, meaning they looked at different scientific databases, compiled all this data, and it's called a meta-analysis. This meta-analysis showed there was conclusive evidence that there was enough clinically significant trials to show that cannabis is effective in chronic pain. So it is effective in chronic pain and spasms. Spasticity from multiple sclerosis, spasms, and other disorders. It also showed that it was effective in insomnia, sleep, Tourette syndrome, and an opiate withdrawal. So I think that it was a good quality paper that I can tell people that they looked at lots of databases, lots of journals, and it showed this. From 2015 onwards, JAMA has published more data about opiate deaths, the states that have enacted medical marijuana laws, there's a 25% reduction in fatal overdoses. 25% less people are dying because cannabis laws have been enacted. I think that is huge, huge. As we battle this opiate crisis, I think that is absolutely huge. Another paper that was published in 2017, which I think was very good quality, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. In 2017, they published a paper, 440 pages, 10,000 different trials and research papers that they looked at. And it showed, again, same thing that they showed in 2015 with JAMA article, clinically significant pain relief, clinically significant decrease in spasms, insomnia, Tourette syndrome, and then moderate quality evidence in a few other illnesses, and some minimal quality evidence in other diseases. The reason there's lower quality or moderate quality is because, again, it goes back to why we haven't been able to research it. So these are two different papers that I usually cite when I talk to doctors who tell me there's no research available. That is absolutely not true. So I'd like to go over next just a little bit about THC and CBD, these cannabinoids. There's about 100 of them. There is this plant we know that has all different types of cannabinoids. There are many cannabinoids we still have not identified that we don't know exactly how it helps. But people ask me, what about synthetic THC? These pharmacy companies have created these two medicines called dronabinol and nabilone. They're synthetic THC. Why is that not effective? I talk to neurologists who do use them. We'll get insurance companies to cover them, to use them for pain or spasms for neuropathy, nerve damage, so they use them all the time. I have ordered them for my patients before for nausea or who have appetite loss, so we have used it. The problem with it is it's synthetic. It is only THC. It does not have the other cannabinoids. It's not the whole plant. There's so much more we have to identify from the plant that we don't know. So that by itself has some effectiveness, but it has a small therapeutic window of it being effective. It can either not work at all, where you get a certain point, and now you're having the bad side effects of being too sleepy or having some fogginess related to it. Also, it's $1,500 a month, so it's a very expensive medicine. So it is, some insurance companies will cover it, sometimes we can get it covered, but it is very expensive without being very effective. So it's not effective for everyone. I'll say most patients I've tried it on hasn't worked, so it's not been effective. There's a new medicine called Epidiolex. Epidiolex was FDA approved in June. It is now available in our pharmacies. It is a whole plant. It is whole plant cannabidiol oral solution. So it's more similar to your CBD product with low amounts of THC. Some of the quality evidence we have right now is because of this product. GW Pharmaceuticals is a pharmaceutical company in the United Kingdom who has brought Dr. Russo, Ethan Russo, to do a lot of this research. They have done a lot of trials, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trials. And so some of those trials we have because of the studies that they've done with Epidiolex, and it's called Sativex in other countries. But it's $2,700 a month, guys. And it's only FDA approved for 2 illnesses currently in the United States. 2 very severe forms of seizures in children, Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut. In my medical career over the last 15 years, and as a student now 20 years, I have not yet to see, one of those illnesses, thankfully. But so that means that what happens to the rest of us who we, think that this product may be helpful for us. So I think that's where the medical marijuana laws really come in here in Missouri. We are going to have a list of qualifying conditions. The Amendment 2 did a really good job. The writers did a good job of making sure that those illnesses, those diagnoses that I saw on those different lists from the journals that I read are on there. And there is also a catch-all for physicians and patients that say any chronic condition that the physician deems that medical marijuana may be helpful. Guys, I know there are some people who say that is, maybe that's too broad, but when I look at pain and I look at nausea, I have like 5 things I can use. maybe Tylenol, maybe the non-steroidals, and if patients have upset stomach with it or a history of ulcers, I can't use that. I have my anti-epileptics for nerve pain. A lot of times it makes people too sleepy. I have your muscle relaxants, which a lot of times makes people too sleepy. And I'm down this road, guys. It's not our fault that this opiate crisis is here. It's everybody's fault. You know, there's multiple layers of how it happened. But as a physician, when some patient comes to me and says, I am having horrible knee arthritis pain or horrible back pain, and I've gone through all of these different avenues, and I finally get to a point where I say, okay, the only thing I have left is opiates. And it's not some road we want to go down, and it's a road we're trying to really come back from and steer on. And I'm fortunate to be one of the younger doctors where I've seen this opiate crisis, so I've known and been taught by my father, who lived in Vietnam and saw opium as a problem. So we as a clinic have been very, very cautious with the prescriptions we write for opiates, since I've been with him for 10 years now. But cannabis should be an option. Give me that option as a physician to write it for my patients. It may not work, just like Tylenol may not work or opiates may not work for that patient, but at least it's an option that we have to go down. And so that's why I became I really became an advocate for helping to pass this law. And I think that it's a great thing for Missouri, for the patients and for the physicians that are in this space. When this is available, you will be able to go to your physician. As the Missouri Cannabis Trade Association chair of the healthcare committee, my focus is to get physicians to understand the endocannabinoid system, the diseases that this can be helped by, the research that's out there, and talk to them. So I just found out just during the break that the 1-hour PowerPoint presentation that we created as an association to offer up to doctors has been approved for continuing medical education. That is huge. It's huge. Because it's very hard to get something like cannabis that has a stigma attached to be able to create a 1-hour presentation that the doctors can actually use that as a part of their 25 hours that they need every year to be educated on. It's going to draw more doctors to come out to want to learn and educate themselves. Tomorrow I'm speaking at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, medical school. It's going to be the first medical school in the state who's going to allow a physician to come in and educate their students, their residents, their fellows, and their faculty on cannabis. So we are so excited for that tomorrow. So when you go talk to your doctor, hopefully at that point in July, we would have done some of our, some of what I would love to do is to educate those doctors so that your doctor may be able to say, hey, it is certifying. I'm just certifying they have a condition. Just similar to I would certify a patient for a disability sticker for parking. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but we hope to do that. There's going to be resources out there, and you probably will be able to find them online so that if your doctor's not comfortable, for you to be able to find a doctor who is. I am seeing doctors say somewhere about $100 to $150 to certify patients, and it is really a certification, like Director Fraker said. So when this is available, then it's going, we're going to be able to give patients applicate or help them with their application for home grow as well. So flower will be in the state for patients starting in August. And then hopefully dispensaries will follow sometime next year. And when they do, there's going to be lots of different forms, not just flower like we're going to be seeing in the homes of patients, but there's going to be tinctures to use under the tongue. There's going to be capsules for patients who don't want the taste or the smell. There's going to be creams and patches and suppositories for patients who can't, rectally, for patients who can't even use it orally. So this is a very exciting time for the state of Missouri. As far as dosing, I think that's the other thing that I as a physician am very excited about is to be able to tell a patient, this is a certain dose, let's start low, let's go slow and ramp up, similar to what I do now with any other medication. And lastly, I think what's most exciting is the lab testing. I have patients who use cannabis now who will come to me and know that I'm okay with hearing about it and they'll talk about it. My concern is always dosing and what is in the product that they're using. If they're having a side effect, is it because of the fungus that's there? Maybe they're allergic to the fungus that's in the product. Maybe there's bacteria or microbials. I've heard of plants in Colorado having to clean their rooms because of E. coli, because of bacterial overgrowth. So those are concerns. And then pesticides. You know, the industry is going to use pesticides when it's not regulated because that'll help with their yields. And those pesticides, we don't know if maybe that's part of what we're seeing as side effects from patients who do have side effects from cannabis. So with that, I think that I've covered everything that I wanted to. So thank you for letting me speak, and I appreciate you all listening.
Dr. Bo and also Dr. McCarthy, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. We're learning a lot, I must say. I want to ask an ethical question. What do you say to those individuals or even doctors and professionals? What do you say to them when they talk about marijuana being a gateway drug?
I tell them, you know, there's a correlation and not a causation. If you say that there's correlation, then so is nicotine and so is alcohol. So people who are going down the routes of using it recreationally for those purposes or who are at risk of addiction, there's that correlation also with tobacco. So we should say tobacco is a gateway drug. I see it as an exit drug. It is currently being used in 4 states in addiction centers to help people get off of opiates and heroin and other illicit drugs. And so to me, that's what I say. It's an exit drug, not a gateway drug.
We've heard about the medical implications and the studies that show that. So when individuals come to me talking about the seedy side of the industry, I always talk about it is an economic development platform, being able to create jobs, being able to help rebuild urban America. Matter of fact, in New York, there was a church who did a cannabis forum because they felt it was very important to look at how one can be able to be a part of this industry, not only from the health side, but from the business side. It's going to come, you're going to be a part of it or not. And so it's not this underground industry, this industry that has shown the validity and success and the benefits for it. And so those who are going to be on the part of it or not, those who want to be in front are going to be a part of it.
I was concerned about how does this affect the people that have Medicaid and Medicare, because I understand that you have to get your card and things of that nature. Will there be any assistance for people that's in that arena?
Right. It won't be covered by Medicaid or Medicare as far as the cannabis goes. I am hoping that more doctors will be educated that in the course of seeing the patient who's on Medicaid, that it's just one other form that they go through to help their patient out. And that's one of my goals is to do that, so that that patients don't have to pay certification fees to an outside physician. So I'm hoping for that some doctors will see it the way I do. As far as the industry goes, I've talked to Director Fraker about this, and he said that patients' cards, if they are Medicaid recipients or fall below the poverty level, they will have an identifier on their card, possibly a small symbol or something, that they can go to certain dispensaries who will give discounts for those patients.
Mimi, you were talking about our excitement for the CME certification and what we're trying to do as an organization for educating physicians. But for this group, I think as an industry, we're challenged to have physicians engage and participate in the industry altogether, and maybe give a little more insight on what we as potential patients and what we as individuals, how we can engage our physicians to further that conversation or further that engagement, because that's really what it's going to take to get their attention on the subject.
So I will say that last year has been a challenge. We initially said, let's contact the different health systems. Let's go to Barnes and Mercy and SSM, St. Louis University. As a physician, I have lots of contacts in those areas. It's been very difficult because these facilities, they receive research dollars from federal government. So it's very difficult for them. And their physicians that work there, my sister is a St. Louis University kidney specialist and a professor. She's very worried about the stigma. I don't even want to talk about it. What if, other coworkers say that, I'm talking about marijuana, I just don't want to talk about it. So there's that stigma there. So we decided as an association to really go from the bottom up and to educate the physicians, and that was what prompted us to get this continuing medical education course available. We also are hoping to make it easier for patients as they go to their doctors, so that if your doctor is uncomfortable with that, then you may say, well, there is this trade association in Missouri. We are going to have this hopefully as a webinar where physicians can learn through the web. We're going to have these available for the doctors to attend these continuing medical education courses free of charge, and we want them to learn. As well as we're going to have the video online so the doctors can go learn online at their discretion if they don't care about getting the education credit. So we really want this education to be out there and available for patients, but definitely for your physicians, so that when you talk to your doctor, if they just don't understand or don't know, please have them contact or go to our website. It's mocantrade.org, or look up the Missouri Medical Cannabis Trade Association, and where they can find more information.
Dr. Bowe, how are you evaluating the effectiveness of the treatment with CBDs? I mean, do you do periodic blood titrations, or tell us about how you determine if it's being effective?
Currently, there is no lab testing for serum levels for CBD that is available on a mass scale. So generally, when I have patients who tell me they're using CBD that's effective, it's just checking in with them. What's your dosing? Like, how did you start it? Or if they come to me for that help, I'll say, let's try a third of a dropper for 3 days, and then go up to half dropper, and then go up, and then have them come back and do similar to what I do with any other medication. How is it going? How are things going? Any side effects? If it's not helping, let's go ahead and ramp up and go higher. If that's, and I always tell patients, make sure you find CBD that's lab tested, that is coming from a reputable source.
Will your courses only be available for doctors, or just someone who wants to be knowledgeable about
Sure. Yep. If you go to mocantrade.org right now, go under events page. We gave, in the news section, Dr. Kyle Ostrom and Dr. Patricia Herford gave this PowerPoint presentation at Venture Cafe, which was available for everyone. And you can find the recording of that. It wasn't great quality, so that's why we're hoping with tomorrow at UMKC to have a better quality video recorded. But the PowerPoint presentation is there and available to view. So our future CMEs will probably be the same one or something very similar to it, so we may not record every single one, because it'll be similar.
It's free for physicians and free to watch online as well.
Yeah. And there is, if you want more in-depth videos on new research that's available, there's a group called the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. They've been around for 20 years. They really advocate for research, and it's called cannabisclinicians.org. That's the website. But there are videos you can watch. If you become a member, you can, each month there's going to be a live webinar on a new topic. This is June 2nd. This coming webinar is on opiates and cannabis. Last month it was on women and cannabis, women's health issues in cannabis. So, cannabisclinicians.org. Or you can Google Society of Cannabis Clinicians. Yeah, and anybody can become a member. It was created by physicians for physicians, but really now they're members in all modalities: veterinarians, nurses, just patients, caregivers who want to know more.
Would you mind going into the physiology of how it helps some of these certain diseases? Because I've heard you say anything from sleep deprivation to some sort of severe form of MS, etc.
Sure. Let me see if this is working properly. So, cannabis helps, the cannabinoids help in creating homeostasis, meaning that we have these periods in our life where we go up and down, and if we are very off in pain, we're up here very high, it can help bring you back in this homeostasis. What is believed is, for example, let's say a mobile. You have the center, weight, you have all these different connections, and now you have all these moving parts with horizontal lines. So that is our body. We have hormones, we have neurotransmitters, we have all of these different cytokines in our body. So let's say that you have something that's off. You're having migraine headaches all the time. Now the doctor is giving you a medicine for headaches that just helps with that one symptom, but then you have a side effect of that medicine. Now you've got a problem with another part of the system. And all these systems, depression, anxiety, all of these things, you use a medication to help that system. What we believe is that these cannabinoids help with the top part in creating this balance, homeostasis, where then you don't need to just fix one symptom. You're fixing the actual main problem at the top. And what is hypothesized, and we don't have enough research to know this for sure, that there is something called the endocannabinoid deficiency. It's a clinical cannabinoid deficiency syndrome. Cannabinoids, we make them in our body, called anandamide and 2-AG, we create that, but these phytocannabinoids, which comes from cannabis, can go into this lock and key and work similar to what we create. So it's postulated that maybe patients who have migraine headaches, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, depression and anxiety, maybe you just don't make enough anandamide and 2-AG. You don't make enough of those cannabinoids in your own system. So then cannabis comes in as this key into this lock that then can help create this homeostasis and help you forget the pain or forget, the trauma that you've been through, or decrease those pain signals that help you with the inflammation and whatnot. And so that's where it's felt to work, is really at getting back this balance that possibly you were born as with not enough, or you over time have lost this balance.
And I'd also like to pose the same question to you, Dr. McCarthy.
Have you seen any difference with minority usage, any difference in the homeostasis that she talks about?
Well, there have been some particular clinics that are focusing on the minority side and doing testing from that perspective. If you all don't know about the whole pharmaceutical arena, under pharma, there are now specific drugs specifically for DNA and particularly for sectors of the economy. So we're working with research institutions specifically on how it affects minorities, African Americans, and Hispanics.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
So you just mentioned some mental illnesses and the use of cannabis to treat them. In reading the Missouri law, it seems like if you are going to be certified for cannabis for mental illness, it has to be from a psychiatrist. How have psychiatrists reacted to your information?
I've spoken to a few psychiatrists who are going to be certifying patients, and I hope to be educating many more of them and meeting more of them. I know that was in part of the draft regulations that I saw. That has me concerned because I think it's hard enough to find a physician to certify, and let alone a psychiatrist. I have not seen the final regulations, so I can't speak on whether that has changed. I have met with Director Fricker on a few occasions and brought up some of my concerns, and the department has been very receptive to our comments and whatnot. But that is one avenue that I'm not sure if they've made that change.
Part action. Where, round of applause. Final question for you both. Dr. McCarthy as an economist, and this might get a little broad. Dr. McCarthy as an economist, Dr. Vo as a physician. Where does economics and medicine play a role in employment. From what Sinette said last panel, apparently employers really have the right to do whatever they want to in the realm of employment, right? Has that been the case when it comes to other ailments and other medications? Where is the line drawn if someone's health is imperiled, and how does that play a role also with economics? Because we well know if the economics is right, people will then all of a sudden start to bend rules or change rules to favor whatever the economics is. So if you can answer that last question before we let everybody go, that'd be fantastic.
So from the economic perspective, the industry will be $50 billion by 2020-22. It's $50 billion right now, but 80% of that is the black market. So what we're doing as we move this over to the legalization side, that's going to be able to fund community organizations. For instance, in Colorado, almost $1 billion in tax revenue that is geared toward community organizations. So we're shifting this industry to be able to make it legal to help community organizations. Give you a variance of the economics on the licensing side. We're dealing with a Vegas license for sale for $3 million, but in Florida for $65 million because it's only 22 licenses in the state. So it's very important from an economic perspective to look at this industry, to make sure that they are minorities in the equity side, both on the ownership side and the job side. And we have opportunity now as we move this legislation forward to be a part of that. It is an economic issue. Yes, it's health, which is very important, but it's economics. We have an opportunity to shift this to help bring money to the minority community from that perspective. And that's why we at Minorities in Marijuana push equity and diversity from the economic side.
From the healthcare side, I think it's fair to say that there's no other medical patients who have the stigma that medical cannabis patients do. I know of, with the Society of Cannabis Clinicians, I'm on their board of directors, and one of their platforms is to advocate for physicians to be able to prescribe and certify and help their patients. There are doctors who have lost their medical licenses because they were medical patients, because they had a medical card, and because it's federally legal, they have lost their California medical license, and then that goes on to other states where they can't practice because of that. And so SCC really does advocate for those doctors. There is one story of a physician who was a medical patient from California, was hired in, I believe, Utah, and when he was asked if he used any, cannabis, and he said, yes, I have a medical card, they then made him go do drug rehab, and it was a $40,000 drug rehab program before they would hire him. And he had worked for them before as an as-needed doctor. They liked him enough to want to hire him full time. So it's those situations and that's in the medical communities. I imagine it's much worse in the rest of the the employments in other industries.
That we recognize our panelists and thank them for coming. I too want to thank all of you for participating, along with our co-sponsor, Lewis Rice, and also with all of our presenters. We thank you. From the very beginning, people said, well, what does the license collector's office have to do with this? Well, number one, we license businesses. That's what we do. That's why we're in business. And number two is we make sure that we have these types of forums on hot topics for businesses so that they can begin, they can survive, and they can thrive. And so if you're a business owner out there, keep watch to our website, and we have more forums for you in the future. If you have any that you would like for us to address, make sure you put it on the evaluation form. And for the attorneys, we'll check back with Missouri Bar and make sure that we'll know when this program is certified for your CLE. I want to also thank the entire staff of the License Collector's Office. Give them a hand, please. We work very hard to put these together, and as you see, it's a full office effort. So thank you, everybody. We are the LCO. So thank you very much, and